shared on
You're
my.
invited. We're live right now. It's happened.
Okay.
I need to move you over to my camera.
Okay.
Let me get you here. Saru, what's going on?
Yes,
One
I'm
of
good.
my dude. I don't even know if we've met. I'm pulling
In
up the
person?
Substack here. I don't think we've. It's
What
crazy. All my like COVID
person?
warrior friends
I
and
know.
how few of them I know.
I
You
know.
know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like in
So
person.
true. It's so true. We met once many years ago in the
Oh yeah,
Nova office,
at the
Galaxy Nova.
Galaxy office.
Yes,
That's
yes,
right. Yeah,
yes.
you're on my like working class dream team that I just try to assemble every once in a while. And I
Aw.
think you all have become friends. I'm not necessarily sitting in the middle of those conversations anymore, but it's like I think I connected you to the Hillary Holly over at Care in Action, and then CJ Grimes over at
Yes,
Work for
yes, yes.
America.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
there's just a crew of you kicking ass trying to unite not the entire working class. That's not the thesis for everyone. Like you all are pieces in the puzzle, but I think
yes.
making a broader economic argument that the Democrats have kind of, they're working on it now, but they kind of abandoned over the course of the last 50 years and
That's right.
left this white space for Trump to pick up on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
How'd you get into this? Like, I don't know your origin story. I imagine it's an X-Men-esque, like worthy origin story, but what is your origin story?
Well, it's funny that you should ask that because this year is the 25th anniversary of 9/11. I think I might have shared this on the podcast, but
Yeah.
25 years ago this September, there was a restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center, Tower 1, called Windows on the World in New York City. On that morning, 73 workers died in the restaurant, and about 13,000 restaurant workers lost their jobs in the months following the tragedy. So I was a young organizer working with immigrant workers out in Long Island. I was asked by the union that was inside Windows on the World to start a relief center for the workers who lost their jobs at Windows. But it exploded into so much more because once restaurant workers in New York City found out there was a place for them to go, like my co-founder likes to say, the phone hasn't stopped ringing since then.
Yeah.
Once workers found out there was a place for that, such a huge industry with no real union support. We've been the backbone for 13.6 million workers in this industry.
And before that, you were working on immigrant rights. Were you always an activist from the jump?
Yes. Since high school, I guess you could say.
Since high school is early to be activist. I was whatever the opposite of an activist is, just like a pain in the ass for society in high school. Was that your parents? Was it because of who your parents were? Was it a situation? What do you attribute that to?
I mean, my parents were very aware of what was going on. My mother was very politically astute, read the paper, told us things. But as immigrants, they weren't active. They wanted us to be lawyers and doctors. And I think I grew up fairly angry at what I saw them experience, at what I saw my classmates experience. So even though they were kind of the typical immigrant, climbers.
Was that employers taking advantage of, when you say angry at what they were experiencing? Is it like employers taking advantage of immigrants? So it was kind of rhymed with this restaurant workers thing for a while.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Employers taking advantage. Also just the daily discrimination we faced everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up, before 9/11, I was working at an immigrant worker organizing center out in Long Island while still in law school, supporting immigrants who, like my parents, were being exploited all the time by their bosses and by the system. And so then I happened to be there when 9/11 happened, and the union that was inside Windows on the World was looking for somebody to start an organization. I think I ended up actually being the default, Xander. I think they had other people in mind and they weren't available. And so I was the default, and then the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. So that's the origin story. And the previous immigrant worker organizer you were doing, was it broad? It was across a bunch of industries, ag and
industries. Yeah. But the thing that made me fall in love and realize this has to be my life's work is that Windows on the World was this restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center where literally there was somebody from every island nation, every tiny nation on earth, because the owner of Windows wanted it such so that any tourist that came from anywhere in the world would have somebody that spoke their language and sold them a $10,000 bottle of wine. And what I saw with that workforce that survived was the most diverse. At the time, this was, remember, this is 2001. So early
Right.
2000s, there had been a lot of talk about how do we unite people. There's a lot of intentional divide of black and brown, and a lot of intentional divide among communities. So how do we bring communities together? And then you see this industry where everybody naturally already is. People from
Sure.
all walks of life work in this industry. It's the largest employer of every single group, black, brown, white, you name it.
Mm.
Even Pacific Islander, like everybody's in this industry.
Yeah.
And so it's such a universal experience.
What was the reason? Like a lot of like how we got here for me, I go back 50 years and I talk about kind of the loss of labor support in like the political space in general. But it seems like restaurant workers in particular got left out of the last labor movement too. When you talk about a $2 minimum wage, right? Is that the right number? $2 federal minimum wage?
$2.13. Yes. And it
So
even goes
they
back
weren't included.
That's right.
They
And
weren't included in the first round of this.
They weren't included in the first round, and even go back to the first labor policy, which was what? Slavery, right? This is where this comes from, is the idea that after emancipation, restaurants are like, oh, we want to be able to continue to hire black workers for free. And then, unfortunately, the first round of labor organizing, which resulted in the New Deal, left these workers out because they were black. And so, yes, left out from the very beginning of what was the first pro-labor policy in the US, Xander? It was emancipation, right? The idea that you can't have free labor, right? Left out of that, then left out of the New Deal, then left out of the last 50 years. And during that time that they kept being left out, the Restaurant Association, the trade lobby grows more and more and more powerful, to the point where electeds, again, from all sides of the aisle, from DSA to the far right, all feel this like sense of like such reverence, and they're so beholden to the restaurant industry.
To restaurant owners, the restaurant industry.
That's right. Yes.
Is this does this carve out exist anywhere else in society? This carve out where they don't have to pay minimum wage, and like, what's the argument they use for that carve out?
Yeah, well, it's been 150 years of the restaurants industry saying we shouldn't have to pay our own workers because you, the customers, pay our workers' wages for us.
Right.
So they have essentially, if you think about it, Xander, they have set up a situation where they have one group of working people paying for another group of working people's wages through our tips without the employer ever having to pay anything at all. And when you ask about other industries, well, yes, but only because this industry has forged the path. So other industries go, as long as they get that boondoggle, we want it too. So you see nail salon workers paid a sub-minimum wage in a lot of states, and car wash workers. And
interesting.
In places like New York, Democrats are so much more willing to say to the car wash industry, you have to pay the minimum wage, or nail salon, you need to pay the minimum wage. They're terrified to say it to restaurants. It's just
got it. And that's just going back to the size of the industry. There's just so many restaurant owners out there, and the industry is that powerful. Interesting.
That's part of it. It's not just the number. I've been really, somebody's got to do a good, deep anthropological study on this, but I call it the Cheers effect. I think politicians, even the DSA politicians, they have their Cheers.
In their district. They like rolling into their couple places where the owner knows them and they're close with them. Yeah.
Right. And they bring their donors and they bring their friends, and they're like, I know the chef, and it's like Cheers. Everybody knows my name. I mean, this only works for people who are old enough to remember the show. But I do think that's part of it, is that a lot of even progressive politicians have their favorite local restaurants, and they're worried about pissing them off. And instead of saying to their favorite local restaurants, you know what, I'm going to help you, but you have to pay. You have to pay people. It's just not sustainable otherwise.
How many states have followed your lead here and instituted a real minimum wage for restaurant workers? Where are we at in this fight?
So we have about, at this point, 10 places that have done the right, 10 or 11 places that have done the right. So 7 states. We won Michigan, and Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer rolled it back, but we're rolling it back. We're bringing it back. Then we won it in Chicago.
Whitmer rolled it back. Interesting.
And so
Interesting.
when I
Yeah.
say
What was her argument rolling it back when she rolled it back?
restaurant owners are telling me they can't survive,
They can't get, yeah. Okay.
2025 was the first time in United States history when politicians of either party thought it was not political suicide to roll back any workers' wages. I don't mean block a minimum wage increase. Republicans do that all the time.
Sure.
I mean, that
Rolling
prior to
back wages.
2025, Republicans in Florida used to say political suicide to try to roll back somebody's wages. But in
Right.
2025, Democrats in DC, Michigan, and Colorado rolled back workers' wages in the restaurant industry, thinking there won't be any consequences here for us. It's going to be fine. It's not political suicide in the midst of an affordability crisis to roll back these workers' wages.
Is the calculus because we are so politically calcified, everyone's got Stockholm syndrome, so there's nowhere for anyone to go? Like, you can start doing things that would previously have been punished because if you're an incumbent, you're safe for a million different reasons. The districts have been gerrymandered, the parties have calcified. And so there's like this lack of voter mobility, for lack of a better term, that is stopping them from fearing voters. Yeah.
I think definitely that's part of it. I do think the Democratic Party in particular, and we saw it in 2024, has made a decision that this workforce doesn't matter. And that is why Trump was able to get them with the no tax on tips.
Yeah.
Why, when we went to Democrats and say, look, he's pandering to this population, please pander, they were like, no. So I think there has been such an insanely, as you said, calcified power structure. The Restaurant Association, including small businesses, they're powerful. These workers don't have voice, don't have agency. So we're going to make the decision to always go with the employers rather than the workers. And Trump saw the opportunity in that, like that calcification, to go after this workforce that is so abandoned and nobody else is paying any attention to.
Yeah. What do you think you've learned, like, in this? I feel like almost because of the effort you've been leading, you're so well positioned to be an advisor to like the broader progressive movement. I don't even want to call it Democratic Party, like broader, just progressive movement in this country. What is the thing you've learned, not only, leading this, but you think the broader lessons you've learned, if you could talk to, Schumer and Jeffries and like in general, like political leadership, media leadership, what are they not hammering that they need to know to hammer?
So I think the number one thing we need to learn from the last decades is we have to be bold. And bold means being both expansive and inclusive, right? So in terms of minimum wage, fighting for 15 and 17 is why people hate us. Fighting for 25 and 30 is what people want to see us doing, right? They want to see us be bold in terms of expansive, courageous fights for them. And then inclusive, what did I learn from the last 25 years? We keep leaving people out at our peril. And I don't just mean on the wage issue. I don't just mean tipped workers. Look at on LGBTQ rights, Xander. The LGBT movement, LGBTQ movement kept leaving trans people out themselves over and over and over again until they became a convenient target for the right. I remember, I'm old enough to remember way fights back on marriage equality and DOMA where trans folks were left out over and over again. And then they became a target for the right. Here we are with tipped workers left out over and over and over again. Trump is like, oh, that's a population for me to go after. No tax.
Sure.
And we've seen it in example after example. If we are not courageous and bold and stand up for people and at the same time inclusive, we keep losing over and over again.
Do you think, what's the broader, when you talk about bold, I think something that feels missing these days is it feels like we are fighting yesterday's fight in some ways, or at least pieces of yesterday's fight, and we don't actually have a big picture view for what it means to be a working American in the future. And like, what is the holistic package, right? We have a lot of people doing, quote unquote bullshit jobs that don't feed people, house people, do the things that society needs to do.
That's right.
We have people with rapidly archaic skill sets because of AI and the displacement. I mean, when you go into fast food restaurants now, it'd been a while since I'd been to a fast food restaurant. It is jarring the lack of employees there. You go through the drive-through line and
Yes.
either an AI voice or just a call center.
Green, yes.
It's all
Yeah.
kiosks to buy things. And so there's this, I know you can get into tricky territory saying like this new wage or this new era of technology is going to permanently displace workers. But I think what we are at least seeing with technology is the displacement of workers from essential industries, right? We might create new industries, new ways to contribute, et cetera. But there's not that many of us that need to be doing things, and increasing less of us to make sure we are all fed, housed, have transportation, et cetera. So I think, increased wages and maybe a massive increase in wages because the hours we all need to contribute to society need to go down, or some of us need to contribute, left here or there. I'm saying a lot just to take a step back and ask you for your opinion. Like, what is the future of like this suite of policies that support an American worker look like?
This terror that, we can't, we've heard this for so long. You can't raise wages because robots will take your jobs, and, we're worried about AI taking all of our jobs. Well, it just so happens, Xander, that most of the people in these jobs don't work one job. They work three. And 3 is the minimum. Like we keep talking about, most of the workers in our
Wow.
membership, they work at least 3 jobs. So the tagline of our new Living Wage for All campaign is one job should be enough. It was in the past. One job should be enough. If it paid enough, we wouldn't have to worry about, AI is going to take all these jobs, because the people that are still necessary, absolutely essential, because tech can't do it all, are going to be able to work one job and be able to feed their families with that one job and take pride in that one job. And guess what, Xander, to your point about the big picture, do you know what happens when people can work one job instead of 3? They can actually spend time with their families.
Spend time with their family. They spend time getting civically engaged. I'm so excited you brought that up, because I do feel like the American vision at some point became your value is your economic input, and that's it. And we lost the community member piece of it, and why it's important to save time and energy for being a community member, a family member, and a civic participant. Like I go to these local indivisible meetings here, and it's all retirees, because a working American can't be a part of these things, and that's not good.
Saturday, no, to a No Kings rally. They can't come to a meeting. Are you kidding me?
Certainly not like a Wednesday night, and so you have basically one generation, and not, like, in my opinion, certainly not the only generation who participate, being the backbone of civic engagement in this era.
That's right. That's right. And the rest of the population cannot make it work. And it's heartbreaking, because for all the family values the right preaches, they want people to be working multiple jobs and not around their kids. Because guess what? What happens to those kids? All they can do, because they don't get a proper education, is go into low-wage jobs, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no upward mobility because parents aren't able to spend time with their kids. There's certainly no civic engagement to change the whole system, which is what they want. It's all very intentional.
Do you think sometimes our language, like we talk about upward mobility, sometimes our language is almost this like humanitarian language? I think it's right. But I wonder if the argument, and this is when I was running MLK's foundation, this is like where I ran into some issues with the Kings, where we were chatting about how to frame the challenge. And I think we can talk about the upward mobility of that child, but we can also talk about like what makes a 21st century country great. Like, what are those people up to? And I think people toiling in like low skill labor is not like the things that will advance a 21st century country. When we talk about,
I think we can have a dialectic on that, though, because
thanks. Sorry, I heard it as I said it. I'm trying to make 2 different points here. I heard it as I said. Go ahead and correct me on that front, and then we'll work through the second thought.
I know you agree, but I don't think any job is lacking in skill.
It's totally fair.
It's just what we have decided, what we've decided to value, right?
Yes.
We've decided to value somebody sitting in an office making some decisions over somebody feeding somebody else. That's what we've decided to value, you
So,
know?
so I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm
Yeah.
saying there's a world in which we celebrate the automation of certain things because it frees people up. If I'm saying, what do I want an American to be doing in the 21st century in general? I
Yeah.
want them strengthening their community and spending time with their family. Because as we know, what's the ROI on that? It's like less
Exactly.
violence, better output for their
Exactly.
family,
Yes.
a million different things. I want them to be able to be civically engaged in their local politics specifically, if they can
Yeah.
be engaged there and organized there, and we see ourselves as like half of our contribution to society is a civic one and not just an economic one.
That's
And
right.
to the extent that you are engaged economically, I'd love you to be involved in kind of the innovation, or you don't have to be an entrepreneur. It could be just you're a participant in the innovation that's going to
That's
move us
right.
forward because you're
That's right.
advancing, I don't know, renewable energies in the country,
That's
or
right.
you're automating transportation so
Or
we can
you're
all
coming
see
up with
everything.
new recipes, you're coming up
Yeah,
with
or you're yeah, totally. It doesn't have to be so like Silicon Valley. And sorry
yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm a Silicon Valley kid, so my brain goes there. But I promise you, I'm not like a technocrat in that sense. It could be like you're coming up with new types of restaurants and you're
Yes,
enriching like the
yes.
local like community or whatnot. Anyways, all I say is like there's a version of a vision for this country that was in the like 1950s when you saw the Jetsons or like something where it's like technology was something that liberated everyone so they could then do things that were
That's right.
more interesting, more
Meaningful.
useful, more
Yes.
meaningful, right? And somehow we like lost that. Like technology is no longer a liberating force, and we don't have a vision for how we want people to be able to
I don't think
spend their time
I don't think
optimally.
it's somehow, Xander. I think there's a
That
very
is such a good point.
no, I think it's a very clear vision for how we want people to spend their time. People
Yeah.
in power want people like me to spend our
Yes.
time working 3 jobs so that we can't engage politically, so that we
Yes.
can't say, "Wait a second, actually, everybody I know agrees you should be paid enough to have 1 job." You know,
Yes.
they don't want us doing that for very concrete, specific reasons. You know, because
Totally.
if we
The,
did
f-
that,
the,
then their big corporate donors would have to pay more.
even Keynes talked about a 10-hour work week. When they were establishing the 40-hour work week, he talked about 10. I think there's like that piece. There's that piece of it. When you talk about bold vision, it's
Yes.
like that's a vision from 100 years ago, basically. I don't know,
Yes.
90, right? When did we
Yes.
get the 40-hour work week? In the 30s?
1938. Yes.
1930s, in the 30s. So it's a 90-year-old vision is the big bold vision of
Yes.
literally like not only work a job, but let's decrease to the extent that we can automate certain
Yes.
needs. Let's decrease what it even means to have that job so we can free you up to do other meaningful things in the world for you, your family, and just for joy. Like if you look at our founding fathers, I'm kind of on a roll now. Sorry, so sorry if I'm wrong. But if you look at like our founding fathers or other people you appreciated, the amount of freaking leisure time these guys had to think of shit.
Yeah, well, they have slaves, so that was part of it.
That's what there's a version where it's like, let's do that, but without slaves. What if everyone had that amount of leisure and opportunity and whatnot?
Yes.
And what comes of it? Because we have this narrative that we get innovation out of desperation, that people, because they need to survive, will build things and whatnot. And we're worried about the incentive. And I think if you look at the people who have leapt us forward, oftentimes they are buoyed by sometimes slaves, sometimes deep, wealth, whatever it is.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't think, and maybe I feel so passionately about this because it's a little bit of my story, right? I was a high school dropout. My father was murdered. My uncle raised me after that. Was addicted to drugs and overdosed. And I went to a rough school. I had guns to my head twice in high school and had to move once because kids were trying to kill me.
Wow.
Then I come into a trust. And all of a sudden, everything, because of my father's murder, and everything is possible. I can start a business. I can learn about stock trading because now I own stocks. I can, like just the information retention became incredible. And then my freedom to go explore and try things and fail was massive. And since then, I feel like I've objectively been a pretty good participant in America. And I don't think I am special. I think I got that package that you talked about the founding fathers got of a mix of stabilization and opportunity. I reject the idea that I'm special because I've lived through eras in my life when I was not special because I had the opposite package. And so that's really, anyways, I want to kind of pass it over to you because I've been monologuing for a second. I have you
No,
here. When
no.
I think about a vision for the future of this country, it's not just like this one job thing. It is a redefinition in the amount of freedom we want to catalyze for people because of what happens when you catalyze that freedom for people.
That's absolutely right. And I have asked many of our members, for example, what would you do if you could have one job instead of
Great
three?
question. What do they
And
say?
of course, they would spend time with their family and maybe, oh my God, take a vacation, right? But when I asked them, what would you do? What would you engage in politically if you had that capacity? Do you know what they all say? Climate. They all say
Really?
climate. Yeah. And it's because they can see as people living on the front lines, like
Yeah.
what's going to happen to their future generations. So here's the thing, Xander. I feel like the climate world is a lot of whiter, older, maybe wealthier folks. There's definitely young people, but they tend not to be overwhelmingly working class people, right?
Most
And
definitely.
and they don't have the political will. I mean, none of us do right now to win what they want to win at scale. The only way they can do that is through working people, engaging at scale. And so I have often said to that space, I can help. I know I have millions of people who would engage on this issue. Help me get them one
Yes.
job instead of three so that they could actually engage on this issue.
There's like almost a minimum viable amount of freedom that you need a person to have before you can really say, we got rid of slavery, emancipation, good step, right? Like not being owned by an actual freaking person, good step. But but but
Yeah.
there's like there are several steps before that. I'm thinking about almost a Maslow's hierarchy before it's like you can really be a citizen in the sense that you're participating actively. You can think about this shit. To your
That's right.
question, it was key. What would
Yes.
you do? What would you be working on if you only had one job? Not
Yes.
like what do you wish you were spending? The ability to even think about the climate, and not just
Yes.
meet your
Exactly.
needs is so challenging.
Exactly. Just yesterday, there was an article in the Washington Post about how all of the data around suicide and mental health points to economic conditions over and over and over again. Minimum wage and people's ability to pay for things without the stress of how am I going to feed my children? Where am I going to stay tonight? That
Yeah.
is the number one source. And yet 90% of the mental health industry's solutions are not focused on raise wages or improve people's economic conditions. It's like, let's deal with people once they're at that point of suicide and try to walk them off the ledge. That's what it's all about.
I want to go back to this like experience I personally had, which like I had a 0.0 GPA in high school. that
Wow.
was my GPA in high school. I was
Wow.
valedictorian nominee in college
Wow. Wow.
for the whole time.
Wow.
My brain could retain things more because they were viable. You know what I mean? It's not just are you smart or not? Are you hardworking? I could wake up early because I was excited about my day, not because all of a sudden I had good work ethic. And so
you weren't worried about how am I going to pay for this or this,
No, it's the flip side. It was people. There's a weird thing once you have like a little bit of resources, people want to team up with you, and like you're being brought onto projects you don't really deserve to be on, and like all sorts of shit. The flip happens, and I'm not saying we can give everyone that package, but I think we can give people a mix of stability and opportunity that would then allow for them to realize that potential within themselves because of the viability and stability that like they're experiencing in their own mind.
Totally.
And it would be great. It would be great to see that for your workers. And there's almost like there's a vicious cycle that we're in right now. And there's like we are like 3 or 4 social programs away from like a virtuous cycle in terms of allowing for those people to organize on a regular basis to get more wins and then get wins for the environment. And then
That's right. Yes, we're so.
If you weren't doing this, what would you be working on, Saru? If you weren't doing the restaurant workers thing, what would be, what's like the things that you have written down? You're like, dang, once we win this battle, I'd love to be doing this.
Well, given that our members point to it, of course, climate is something, we all have to be working on for my children's sake, I mean, Palestine is very close to my heart and to my kids' heart. I just watch my kids and the things that move them. And So definitely mental health and Palestine and climate are top of mind for my children, because they're
Yeah.
teenagers, 13 and
How about you
16.
mention the Palestine thing?
Yeah.
The idea that we still have this, speaking of workers' movement, this is the idea that we still have fucking war in the 21st century makes me remember that there was an international workers' movement that died on the vine a while back.
Purposefully.
And yeah,
Purposefully.
it was killed. You're right. I keep saying died, and I mean killed. Like it was like intentionally murdered is a better term for it.
Right.
But
Yes.
like it does feel to a certain extent, I sometimes feel like I'm moving pieces around their chessboard. They, as in kind of the powers that be, which is kind of like this nation state, this class war, etc. It's insane with all we know now. We're traveling between countries. To your point about, how diverse a place like New York City is, that we can still send off young kids from one country to kill young kids from another country. And there's some reignition of an international working people's movement that I feel like
Absolutely.
we're primed for. And
Yes.
I don't quite know how to get started. It's such a
I
big
know.
idea.
It is. I mean, I was just invited to come speak in Canada about our new living wage for all movement
Oh,
because
cool.
they're facing the very same cost of living issues. We're looking at how Europe is now moved from a wage, just like, 20, 25 to like, no, we're going to always have the minimum be 2/3 of the median of the average median wages, So we're
Mhm.
like learning from each other and talking to each other in ways that hasn't happened in a really long time. And
Of course.
because,
We're living in
cost
each other's countries. We're like bouncing
exactly.
all over the world. It makes
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
And cost of living is out of control everywhere, Xander. Since the pandemic, everybody's experiencing a cost of living crisis. So affordability suddenly, what James Carville had said so long ago, it's the economy stupid. It's like suddenly everybody's waking up
Yeah.
to that.
Is part of that, is everyone having a housing supply crisis? Is that part of what's going on? It's like NIMBYism went global and like we just don't have enough houses for everyone. And
I
people are outliving, right? Like old people aren't passing down their house because they're still alive, I guess is a
That's
huge part
part of
too.
it, yes. I do think there is some housing stock where, we actually just need to make it more affordable and put more money in people's pockets. So it isn't just
Yeah.
building new housing, it's also just allowing people the resources to afford housing that does exist. So I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. But I know I'm biased, but there just is nothing more immediate that would solve so many of these problems, not just housing, but childcare and healthcare and so much else, than just putting more money in people's pockets. And again, requiring employers to pay their fair share. Like that is such a simple concept that the majority of people agree with, you
Yeah, and
know?
we know with the way wealth inequality is trending, the money is going into some pockets.
That's
Like,
right.
there's guys worth hundreds
Right.
of billions of dollars all of a
That's
sudden,
right.
that was an
Yes.
unthinkable number even, like, 4 or 5 years. What is Elon Musk's net worth right now?
I thought he had just approached a trillion. No?
$850 billion. It's insane. Like, wasn't Gates, like, the richest guy in the world at 40? Like, it feels
That's
like
right.
5, 10 years ago
That's
or whatever that was.
right. Exactly.
So money is going into pockets. It's just going into a particular set of pockets.
The
All
1%.
right, this was so lovely. I'd love to talk more about the future with you. I feel like you and myself and a bunch of our peers are stuck in this like existential fight sometimes. Like it's like World War I. We're in the trench, and but it's like people, but the soldiers in the trench have the ability to envision how to avoid war altogether, how to have
Yes.
a brighter future. But
Yes.
every once in a while, maybe that's what I should call this thing. Like pulling our leading soldiers out of the trenches for a moment to dream. It's too long of a title. We'll get there. Uh, it was so good. It's so good to see you, Saru. Thanks for jumping
Likewise.
on with me.
Thank you,
Thanks for jumping on
Xander.
live.
Thank
All
you.
right. Talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Actually, you know what I'm saying? Bye. I have no idea how to get out of this thing.
No,
All right.
just hit leave
I'm
studio.
figuring it out. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
All
Bye.
right. See you. Mm, mm, and stream. And stream.